Hello, everyone. We are waiting on everyone coming in from the waiting room. Lovely to see everyone today. Some familiar names and faces, which is always great. We're going to get started in a few minutes, just allowing for a bit of time for some newcomers. If you wouldn't mind just popping yourself on mute for now, that would be great. Feel free to turn your camera on. It would be lovely to see faces. And do introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, in the chat if you'd like to. And we'll get started shortly with some intros. I can see some more people just coming in now. Thanks for joining, everyone. Hi, Yannick. Thanks for popping that in the chat. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat while we're waiting, and we will get started very shortly. Great. Fab. I think Yannick's going to manage some people coming in a little bit late. So for now, we will just get started then. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming to HdK's webinar, Get Ready for Google Analytics 4. We'll just allow some more people to join and start with some intros before we jump in. So for anyone new, we are HdK. We're a digital marketing agency based in London. We work primarily with arts and non-profit organisations. And we have two main offerings, and that is websites and digital marketing. So I am Meg. Lovely to meet everyone, or see you again if you've come before. I'm the marketing manager at HdK. So I work on the marketing team to support all of our clients with a number of different marketing services. With me today are Victoria, Levita, and Kay, who are from the web team. I will just hand over to them quickly now and allow them to introduce yourselves. Victoria, do you want to go first?
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria. I'm HdK's web support assistant. So I work on support and any support requests that our clients have. And I also work with Yannick, who is our web support developer, to do maintenance on our websites, including Google Analytics. So I'm looking forward to sharing some tips with you today.
Hi everyone, I'm Levita. I'm a project manager here at HdK, and I manage some of our projects on a day-to-day basis, as well as act as a bridge between our clients and the development team. I'll now pass you over to Kay.
Levita. Hi everyone, I'm Kay Pang. I am the digital project coordinator. I work with the account manager and the project managers to ensure that the projects run smoothly.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. If you are happy to introduce yourselves in the chat, that would be great. Who you are, where you're from. Feel free to do that throughout today's session. And just a couple of bits of housekeeping. We use the chat function to ask questions, to jump in. We'll all be monitoring the chat throughout the session. We do have a dedicated question and answer discussion at the end of today's session. But feel free to put your questions in as we go along as well. We also have the live captioning function, so if you'd like to enable that, please feel free. And if you're having any technical questions, again, just use the chat if anything comes up, such as sound or any functions that aren't working for you. And a last bit, we are recording today's session and that will be uploaded to our website. So don't worry if you don't get everything down today. We'll be sending an email out with the recording to everyone who came today and to everyone who registered and weren't able to attend. Great, so today we are talking about Google Analytics 4. So this is just a little visual for you. This is the kind of thing that we are talking about. We'll be going into the kind of technical bits a little bit, also walking through the main changes and how it relates to arts and cultural organisations. So when we're talking about Google Analytics 4, this is what we are talking about. Obviously, numbers will be there. This is just a demo site. So today we're going to cover what is G4, GA4, what will happen to your data, making the switch, and then, like we said, we're going to have a discussion at the end. So I will pass over to Levita now, who is going to walk through GA4.
Thanks, Meg. So GA4 is the newest version of analytics to be released, and the number 4 is just used to represent that it's the 4th version of Google Analytics. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Google Analytics, and most companies use this as the main source of their data collection. So if you do use GA every day, I'm sure you've noticed that the message that appears on the top of your screen, the one that says they're getting rid of Universal Analytics, also known as UA, and moving over to GA4. So UA will stop capturing any new data as of July 1st, 2023. And this does not mean that there will be a change to your existing data. However, it's worth noting that GA4 will not import past data from UA properties. And this will be covered further in detail by Victoria. So today, we'll be talking about, obviously, the change, why the change, the main differences, and what it means to you. I know it's a really scary prospect, and you're wondering what that kind of means for your business, and we'll take you through that. We'll also provide you with an easy to follow guide to allow you to make this change as simple as possible. And we'll be sharing a demo as well in the webinar. And just a note, if you need a hand with any of this or you have any questions, we're always happy and willing to help you make the transition easier. So in order to understand what GA4 is, it might be helpful to understand why Google has developed a new generation. So technology and usage habits have been evolving, and Google has decided to make updates to capture these changes. There are three key pillars of development which have called for a shift in how Google records data. The first one is apps. Now, user analytics was built with only websites in mind and to allow you to measure your website usage. And I'm sure you're all noticed that users are increasingly visiting your websites from mobile devices. Now, around 60% of users are accessing websites via mobile. Now, some companies and organizations have used this information and created apps. Until now, apps had to be tracked using a separate GA property or through Google Analytics Firebase. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Firebase, this is an app development platform developed by Google and allows creators to enable GA tracking on their app. GA4 will mean that companies will now be able to combine the web data as well as app data within one dashboard. The second pillar is multiple device. Please raise your hand, digital or in real life, if you use one or more device at the moment. Perhaps you can even see more than one right now, your phone or laptop maybe. Great, can see a lot of hands going up there. According to Kantar in 2021, 84% of British population owns more than one digital device. This means that your audience will very likely have more than one device to view your website. Now, this also means that the UA analysis on your audience will most likely be inaccurate, since it's counting one user using multiple devices or platforms as separate users. To adjust to the development of technology and the complexity of user journeys, Google created a completely new way of collecting data to help you understand your audience better. The third pillar is rejecting or disabling cookies. Now, it's mandatory by law to get explicit consent from users to collect their data. Cookies are a text file that we attach to users in their browsers to add additional information about the user. For example, any baskets they may have open at the time. We use cookies to augment and create meaningful and data insight analytics dashboards. Now, a lot of users are rejecting or disabling their cookies, and this is causing gaps in data. And it's because of this that Google introduced a machine learning feature to predict analysis. I'll now pass you over to Kay, who will go into a bit more about the machine learning aspect and who will also discuss what has been changed in Google Analytics. Kay?
Thank you, Ravita. Now that we've discussed the why, we can explore the what. We have broken down the main changes in GA4 into 4 categories. And the first category is integrated reporting. GA4 can deduplicate users and provide more accurate information. They can gather information across devices and platforms. For example, Daisy has a phone and a desktop. She first sees an ad about a festival with her phone on social media. She visits the website through the link in social media, but does not make a purchase. Later that week, she remembers about the event and makes a purchase with her laptop. Now, UA would have relied on device ID in this case. This means that Daisy's visits through her phone and her desktop would have been logged separately. In GA4, however, we'll be using 3 different methods altogether to capture information more accurately. This means using user ID, Google Signal, which is signing in with the Google account, or device ID. And with this information, Google can determine that the 2 separate visits were made by a single person. However, it is worth noting that any other software or system, there are bound to be further updates to enhance the accuracy. The second category is streamlined reporting. One of the most common questions we get asked about Google Analytics is, what's the difference between page views, unique page views, and sessions? Well, GA4 will scrap all of this, and now all interactions will be treated as events. So it's a lot more streamlined, and Meg and Victoria will discuss this further later. The third category is customizable reports. Using the Explore tab, you can produce a customized report catered to your needs. Many of these are available in UA, but GA4 gathered all of the useful reporting methods together in an Exploration tab for a clear view of what they offer. Also, they included a more flexible, customizable features. As a result, GA4 Exploration tab provides 7 different techniques for you to create the report that will help you understand your audience, and I will go through each of them very, very briefly. So the first one is freeform exploration, which allows you to have full control over your tables and charts. The second one is funnel exploration. This allows you to view the user journey in multiple step funnels. As you can see each steps, you'll get the idea of how your site succeeds or fails to maintain your users. This can help you improve the user journey to be more efficient. Third is path exploration, known as users flow in UA. This will let you see the big picture of how your audience interacts with your website. Segment overlap lets you compare up to 3 segments of users. With this method, you can isolate specific audience segments in between different complex conditions. User exploration, known as User Explorer in UA, will let you walk through the start and the finish of a single user journey. This will help you see how one specific user journey works for your site. Cohort exploration groups together audiences that shares the same characteristics and shows you how they interact with your website over time. This will help you track how well your site retains users and make them visit your website again. Lastly, user lifetime collects data of your users from the very first time they interact with your site and shows you their behavior throughout their lifetime in your website. With these methods, you can tell what campaign or traffic source brought the most valuable users or purchase rate. So like, do you get more revenue from people coming in using search engine, or do you get more revenue from people entering through clicking advertisement banner? This is the questions that will be answered by using user lifetime exploration tab. We don't have time to cover all of this in too much detail today, but a useful link will be popped in the chat at the end of the session for you to explore this more. The final category is machine learning. Machine learning is being mentioned more and more as artificial intelligence technology develops, which is also known as AI. Through algorithms, AI acts like humans by learning from past data and applying them to what will happen in the future. TikTok is a great example of machine learning. The app constantly learns how to analyze the content, for example, being able to tell that a piece of content includes plants, dogs, and a beach. And then they categorize these contents, collects data of how users interact with them, and curates the user's feed so that the users would stay in the app as long as possible. GA4 is integrating this technology to help make predictions for you on how users will interact with your website or app over time using predictive metrics. And this will allow you to track likeliness of purchase and predict churn rate and revenue. Furthermore, GA4 can alert you to new data trends. For example, if the visits from an American audience spikes up, GA4 will let you know in the Insight tab. So these are the 4 changes we've found to be noteworthy in GA4. So far, we've covered why GA4 was developed and what has changed in the UA. Now I will pass on to Meg, who will explain what this means to you.
Great, thank you very much, Kay. That was really useful. So what will happen to your data then? So before we walk through this, I am interested to know what your biggest concern is with the switch to GA4. We've got 3 options on the screen. There are obviously a number of other concerns. If you can pop a 1, a 2, or a 3 in the chat now as to which most closely relates to your concern, that would be great. So you've got number 1, which is the not knowing. Number 2, lack of time or resources to dedicate to learning about the changes. And number 3 is a lack of expertise in analytics and data collection. All 2s coming in. That's really interesting. Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Feel free to keep popping those numbers in. Really interesting to hear that it's all lack of time or resources to dedicate to learning about the changes. I think that's something that across the arts and cultural sector we're feeling more and more at the moment. Is we're all very stretched. So that is really interesting. Thank you so much, everyone. So I will move on then. So we've got some key changes from Universal Analytics to GA4. So the first key change, and this has been touched upon by Kay, is events. So in GA4, events will take longer to record than in Universal Analytics. And also, as Kay mentioned, everything that we're used to is now going to be recorded as an event. So the most important thing then is for you to expand your reporting time out roughly 24 hours from when you wish to report from. This just means that you'll have enough time for the Google Analytics to collect the data that relates to the period of time you're looking to report on. So it's important to be forward thinking about that. Next, we have sessions. So in GA4, sessions are recorded a bit differently, and they are likely to appear lower than your organization is used to. So GA4 records sessions, engaged sessions, and engaged sessions per user. And lastly here, we've got bounce rate. So although it was valuable, bounce rate has always been a fundamentally flawed metric. If a user visited a page, for example, and scrolled through, read everything, and then clicked away, they would be included as a bounce. It's a bit of a gray area because they did engage in the page in a way that wasn't taking action. So GA4 has shifted that to engagement rate. So, for example, we've got Becky from Milton Keynes. So Becky lands on your About page after coming to your website from a social media link. Becky scrolls down the page, reading each paragraph and looking at each image. After reading about your organization's history for 5 minutes, which is quite a long time, Becky closes the page. So in Universal Analytics, like I just said, that would have been recorded as a page bounce. But in GA4, this is recorded as an engaged session. So ultimately then, this new metric means all users, from those who click away immediately to those who engage with multiple aspects of your page, are recorded some way. This isn't to say that there aren't any limitations or downsides with this change, one of which is starting over. As we've seen from all of you responding in the chat, it will require some time to dedicate to getting used to the changes. And that can be quite frustrating, especially when it seems like lots of software and lots of programs are updating all the time. So GA4 does require a new property, so none of your previous data will transfer over. Victoria, just after me, is going to walk through how to do this in a practical sense. But you will essentially be starting from scratch. So we recommend setting up your new account as soon as possible to allow for ample time to deal with any barriers that crop up or things that might be thrown your way. And this kind of comes hand in hand with that. This is not so friendly a user interface if you're just starting out, which we all are. So again, it is just getting used to a different system. With that, not to end on a negative note, but to bring it back up, I'm going to pass over to Victoria, who's going to talk about how we embrace all of these changes and run with it. So Victoria, please take it away.
Perfect, thank you, Meg. So we know that the change is going to be made in July next year. So we need to start thinking about how we can make the change smoothly and safely. What I mean by safely is that we can make sure that we're collecting all of our data. So basically, as long as the change is made before July, you'll still be collecting data in your Universal Analytics account. Once you've set up a GA4 property, you'll then be collecting data in both your UA property and GA4 property until July. But your data won't be identical because of the differences that Kay and Meg have spoken about. So it's really important when you update your UA property to GA4 that you check that it's firing correctly. The reason is that you don't want to get further down the line basically and realize you're not collecting any data on your visitor interactions because you've forgotten maybe to add a tag, or you've named your tag incorrectly, which are all things that are very easily done. Unfortunately, at the moment, Analytics doesn't offer the option to do this automatically through the platform. So you'll need to do a manual changeover, which is what I'm going to share in the demo. So I've pre-recorded a demo, but one thing I want to mention before I share that with you is that it assumes that your website already has Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager installed. If you don't have it installed already, you may need to contact your developer or someone who's technically minded to add the tracking code into your website. If this isn't something you have access to, then we're happy to help you along the way. We do advise to do this with someone technical if that's available to you. So a manual changeover is fairly quick and painless, but there are a few things to keep in mind, which I will talk about in this demo.
So to get started, you'll need your Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager accounts open in your browser. You'll be moving between them quite a lot during this process, so you just want to make sure you have everything set up in a nice, clean environment, just so you know where everything is. So I've coded up a really, really simple static site for Pets of HdK with a couple of simple links, just so when we look at analytics later, we can see what pages we've been visiting. The first step is to decide on the domain or property that you want to switch to GA4. So I'm going to use hdkdemo.co.uk, and I'm going to go over to Google Analytics. You want to go to all accounts and find the account that you need. So mine is demo account, and then go to all website data, which will take you to your main dashboard. One quick trick for making sure that you're definitely in the right property is to go to your website, right click with your mouse and go to View Page Source. Control F on the keyboard for UA, and it will show you your unique Universal Analytics ID. So I'm just going to copy and paste this and go back to Analytics. Paste it into the search, and this will just make sure that you're definitely in the right place. So next you want to go to Admin at the bottom left and go to the Property section. Go to GA4 Setup Assistant and press Get Started. Create property, and then go to your GA4 property. But just note that this isn't your GA4 property setup because we still need to add the tags. So we're now in our new GA4 property. So I'm just going to expand this so we can see it. The way you can tell you're in a G4 property and not a UA property is there are only two columns. In Universal Analytics, you had 3 columns, account, property, and view, and now you only have account and property. So what you want to do now is go to data streams, click on the arrow, and you'll find your GA4 measurement ID. So you want to copy that. Perfect, so that's copied over. And now we're going to go to Google Tag Manager. When you go to Google Tag Manager, you want to find your the account associated with your property. So hdkdemo.co.uk. I'm going to go into tags on the left and see what tags I already have. So I've already set up a Universal Analytics initial configuration tag, which I now want to add a GA4 tag. So I'm going to select New. And I'm going to title it something descriptive. So HdK demo account, GA4 init, meaning initial configuration. I'm going to go to tag configuration and select GA4 configuration on the side. And you want to make sure that you select GA4. So I now need the measurement ID, which I'm going to paste here. And then I'm going to go to triggering and select all pages. Now it's dependent on what pages you want to select, but by default, we always select all pages to make sure we're collecting data from everywhere on our website. So then you want to press save. So you've saved this, but it's still not live and things still aren't being tracked through GA4. So to check that everything works before we submit it, we want to go to the GA4 tag we've just created, select it and go to preview. Now in this debugger, in the Connect Tag Assistant, we want to put our website's URL. And we're going to press connect. So this will open up your website and show you here that Tag Assistant is working to see what your tags are doing. So you want to go back to this tab where it says connected, and you should see HdK demo account or your demo account for GA4. So you want to click on this and you'll see here that it says 3 containers have loaded. So if you click on this, it will show you here that they've fired. So you know that they're all working. So when you go to submit them, they'll all be fine and they should work. So we're going to go back to Google Tag Manager now, and we're going to submit this. So again, you want to add a descriptive name. So HdK demo account GA4 init configuration. And you can add versions for these tags if you want to, but because it's an initial one, I'm going to leave the description out and I'm going to publish it. So now your tag is published, perfect. You can see everything here. And it might take a while for your data to start showing. So we recommend to check in after maybe 2 days to see if the data is pulling in. So I'm going to go back to analytics to my GA4 account now and click on home. And you should get a notification saying your website's data collection is active. And you'll be able to see also that your Google Analytics 4 interface is different to UA. So now everything is set up and I'm going to check back in a couple of days to see if my data is pulling in.
Perfect. It's always a bit weird watching yourself back. So I would say I checked back after a few days. I think it's on the next slide. I've just got an image of the interface of GA4. Not any data in there at the moment, really, because it's a demo site. But after about 48 hours, you'll start seeing data populate. Yeah, so then I just wanted to quickly touch on what we've been doing to make sure that we're preparing for the changes. So we've been basically doing updates to our clients' GA4 properties weekly for the last 3 months, just to basically make sure everything is firing correctly. And you just want to make sure that you leave enough time to make sure that everything is ready to go next year. Yeah, and I think then I will pass over to the team and we will move into the Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We are now going to, like Victoria said, answer some questions. So if you'd like to use the chat box, or feel free to unmute yourself and say hi and ask a question. We also have some brilliant people from different organisations in today, so it would be great to have just an open discussion and use everyone's expertise. I can't see any questions coming in yet, so we'll hold on for a couple of minutes. I know that we also have Yannick in the room, although yeah, there you are, hello, who is web support developer at HdK, who will be popping in with some insights if anyone has any questions. So yeah, we'll hold on for a couple of minutes while those questions come rolling in, hopefully. Great. Thank you, Emily. So Emily Collins asks, how will past data be migrated to these new metric labels? And what would you suggest we can do now to be sure that our data 2021 and 2022 and previous is logged truthfully? That's a really, really great question. Not to put you on the spot, but I wonder whether, Victoria, you're able to take that one initially.
Let me just read through the question again.
I will jump in while Victoria's reading. Hi, Emily. It's a great question. So each setup is setup bespoke. So in general, you need to have someone technical to look at it and make sure that the labels that you set up match to the old one. I would set up what you've got on the UA and what you have on the G4 and match them together. In general, what we're doing is we're setting up GA4 early so that data is rolling in, so you have that historic data. But it's things like I'm not sure if you're using e-commerce or anything like this, but it's just, in technical terms, it's making sure the data layer that what's called on one side is called the same on the other side, and you match them up. And it's really making sure, you know, this that the labels fit each other. What you can do to prep, I think, is to dedicate a bit of time. It's one of those things that if you have a bit of time for a focused and sensitive work, you can work out a way to make it log together.
Thanks, Yannick. Tor, do jump in if you have anything to add, but I'm sure that was covered. Thank you, Emily. That was a really, really good question. It looks like we are going to be wrapping up early anyway, but does anyone else have anything they'd like to ask? Otherwise, we will hang on for a few minutes to make sure that we can say hello, answer any questions, check in. So please do feel free to add some more questions, but I'll just move on a little bit to our upcoming webinars. So we have a free webinar every month, which members of the HdK team across the board pitch in on hosting. So we've got 3 great ones coming up. September webinar is what should you be posting on Instagram right now? So that's from the digital marketing team. And the October webinar is how to use NFTs as an arts organization. Bit of an interesting one. We are certainly not experts on that, but we are on our way to get there. And the November webinar is how to create engaging image and video content in-house. Those are all on our website under the webinar section. You can sign up today to reserve your free space. And lastly, please do sign up to our newsletter. So we have a quarterly newsletter with case studies, our latest blogs, tips, insights, things like that, which goes out 4 times a year. Another question just coming in, which is great to see. Romana asks, would you recommend using / paying for external software tools to store our historical universal analytics data?
Another great question. So I don't think Google have announced that they're getting rid of the data. However, you know, things always change. So it depends on how important the data is for you and how much it's going to cost the return on investment. If it's really important that you have that data, that you can check it, maybe 5-year reports, 10-year reports, then it could be worth it. For now, Google are keeping it. So if you only need it for the next couple of years, then I would say that it may not be something that's important to you. Peter, you're asking about our sales are through Spectrix, who are not yet integrating with GA4. Do you have any news on when they're likely to offer this? Another great question. And we've been working with Spectrix on some of our updates to create, it's one of an HdK project that we've got on the roadmap currently to make this integration. So the theory is there, the data is on the website, and we can have access to that data via Spectrix. The dashboard is in Google, and it's just getting the communication to go together. So I feel like it will be as maybe on launch of GA4. It's normally what happens is it becomes important for an organization or for Spectrix, and then they put a lot of effort and time into it. I too have asked Spectrix about their roadmap to work out, because they do have it for UA. So I imagine at some point then we need it for G4. I don't have a time on exactly when, but I know that the theory is already being spoken about. There was a question that I think came in before, which I always like to answer about GA4, and it's regarding cookies. So do you need cookies to to track GA4? And the short answer is no, you do not need cookies. The longer answer is that cookies are a controversial area. So many users are not accepting cookies, and many companies are moving towards a cookieless version. And a cookie it's basically just a little text file that we attach to someone to put any kind of information on them. So GA4, what it does is it uses those, it still attaches cookies when it can, to add those little bits of information that make the data a little bit more meaningful. When it doesn't have that, the tracking still fires. But what we don't have is those bits of information like demographics and all these things that build up a bigger picture of who your audience is. And this is where what Google have announced what they're doing is they're using machine learning and AI to make up that gap, to be able to work out how we can make meaningful data from that. So it's kind of a watch this space to see how we can do it. But the key thing is that you can still track without cookies.
Great. Thank you, Yannick. Very well said, as always. Great. I think then we will wrap up today's session. Like I said, do feel free to hang on for a couple of minutes and ask any questions, but otherwise, you are free to go. And we will... perfect. Thank you, Kay, for popping that link in the chat. We will add that link to the email as well, which will be sent out to you by the end of this week for sure. And that will include the recording from today's session as well, and the links to future webinars. It was really lovely to see everyone today. Thank you so much for coming and for spending your morning with us. You can find all of our emails on our website, contact details. We're a small team, so we get everything. So do feel free to pop us any questions if you'd like. Yeah, thank you very much.